welcome to the first film screening event held by the MLTC and the Spanish section at the University of Sheffield. My name is Anabel Castillo, and I work in the MLTC department. Okay? The program today is very simple, so we watch the video, the film. The idea of organizing this film screening started last summer in July in the non-stop street demonstrations in Venezuela. These demonstrations were the most violent demonstrations we have had until now, and they lasted for more than 4 months. This 4-month period received international attention from the major news outlets as Venezuela became an international story, headline story. At this point, it is when I thought, well, we need to inform people about what is happening in Venezuela. But sadly, continued to deteriorate it, and the United Nations declared the current situation a humanitarian crisis. So, my personal approach to this is from a retrospective perspective. In other words, if we look back and take an historical approach, we can understand what is happening right now. The film we're going to watch, El Socialismo Mágico, directed by Michele Calabresi, is, in my opinion, more relevant than ever, because on one hand, it offers an overview of the regime's rise, and also it presents, or it offers us an opportunity to think, to understand, and reflect on why we are where we are at the moment. And finally, my hope is that this film will serve as a catalyst to organizing future projects where journalistic opinion or the debate is the only thing we can have. The important thing will be to open a space to go through what is going on in Venezuela, but also in Latin America as a whole. So that's basically the idea behind this event and what we would like to see in the short term. So I hope you enjoyed the film, and that's it from me. Thank you very much. Michele, film director and filmmaker as well. He's based in London. He's the director of Cubo Films. Fabrizio Macor is a Venezuelan community project. So, well, I don't know if you would like to start with any question.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So in chapter 4, which I can't remember the title, to do with workers.
Yes, Chavez and the workers.
Yeah, it was talking about Chavez and his reaction to the unions.
Yes.
I was wondering what made him have that approach towards unions.
I think, this is to do a little bit with his character. He's a military man, and he's used to impose certain practice. He wants, he can give you augmentation, a salary, something. I don't know how to say that. Sometimes my English fails me, and but it doesn't accept the worker organized to challenge him. So it's not. There is an attitude typical of this, actually, in this populist government, to not recognize this corps of society, like the unions the party, the civil society, is always the charismatic leaders who incarnate all the good that gives what he thinks is the best for the people. And I think this is one of the occasions, because here in Europe we have, we told you as well, socialist governments in Venezuela, a government who's working for the people. So in the European left there is a sort of mythification of the Venezuelan regime and of the figure of Chavez, because from far away we think that in South America there are not unions, there are not political parties, there is not a civil society that fights for their rights. And this is not true. In Venezuela there was a long tradition of union, strike, fight, to get better condition of work, better salaries. And of course, it is true that in the 90s there was this big crisis of the system. Oil prices were at around $9 per barrel, very low, so there was no money since the 80s this happened. And so the state was collapsing. So people really hoped that through this revolutionary leader, through this electoral revolution, but there was never a real revolution. Chavez arrived, he tried to arrive through a coup, but he was elected. So through normal democratic elections into power. So there was this hope that things could change. And that lasted for quite a while. And I think, in the reality, there were the first few years there was lots of hope. All the three union leaders were chavistas, to a certain point. The first one, the one who was also in the strikes against of 2003, almost immediately separated himself from Chavez, but he was the one who wrote the constitutional, in the constitution, the part linked to the workers' rights. So it was elected in the list of Chavez, and it was Chavista to that point. And the second one, who defended Chavez during the strikes of 2002-2003, but he founded a union that was very close to Chavez, but then him again had a fight with Chavez, couldn't go on with his relation with Chavez, because his attitude was violent toward workers and unions. And the third one, also, he was the one who is put in jail. He was Chavista, and he was Chavista even when he was in jail. After a few months in jail, he decided to give up. Okay, enough. So that's, sorry, I maybe spoke too much.
Okay, I want to make some comments about this, because I find the question very good. Well, first of all, congratulations, Michele, because as a Venezuelan, I always get fools when I see things about Venezuela, because there's so much prejudice, European prejudice about Venezuela, and it's always seen through the prejudice about what happens in Venezuela. And with Michele, he's Italian, accent, easy, you can guess. But when I saw it, I thought, well, this is a vision from inside. You really, even if there are things that upset me, you might well accept that, but it's obvious this will happen. But as a whole, I find it fantastic that for the first time I see a European understanding what is happening there, and his effort to understand the participatory democracy and it was very good, and put everything in the voices of the people who were there. We didn't hear him talking and giving his opinion. So really, congratulations for that. But now, going to the question, I really wanted to say this because I sometimes don't even watch the things they say about Venezuela because they really don't have. But now, about the question of the unions, I'm going to say something. Chavez, yes, absolutely correct. He didn't come from the unions, he didn't come from the traditional left, and in fact, Chavez has an evolution. If any of you is a student of history, there's a beautiful work to do to get a dissertation published. Because Chavez evolved in his political thought, if we can call it thought what he had, but he evolved from the extreme right to the extreme left. And this is a very important thing to remember. If any of you is interested in this subject, you can read. There is a Venezuelan writer who made a biography of Chavez before he switched to the left. His name is Alberto Barrera. I don't know if, I don't remember the name of the book. It's very interesting because you can see when Chavez started, Chavez was part of the long tradition of militarist thought in South America. In South America, we have something called desarrollismo, which is a political view developed by the army, where they have to ensure law and order in order to guarantee progress. And this idea of law and order guarantee progress was present in the Chavez view when he tried his first attempt of the coup. Then the government of Venezuela changes all the discourse later on, but was not the reality in the beginning. And then they say, one of the commenters, she said, oh, was the first reaction against neoliberal policies. Well, neoliberal policies in Venezuela had only 2 months when he did the coup, only 2 months, and he was planning this coup for 10 years. So, you do your math. It's impossible that 10 years before we had neoliberal policies. The guy was already planning a rebellion against the neoliberal state. This doesn't match anymore. Nothing of Chavez was published, but there is biographical evidence that he was not. He changed to the left because he realized that in order to win elections, the only way to win elections in Venezuela is through a left-wing narrative. And this not only was for Chavez. All the presidents in the history of Venezuela, which were elected democratically, they had the most radical narrative. Not the most narrative program necessarily, but the most radical narrative. And you will be amazed the things that the Venezuelan presidents or candidates to presidency were able to say. But in the reality, nobody in Venezuela ever had a right-wing program to win the elections, except very microscopic groups, which were insignificant in the elections. So basically, Chavez, responding to your question, didn't come from a tradition of trade union movement, didn't come from a tradition of community development in South America. No, he came from the army. This was a guy who wanted to play baseball. And then he grew in the army and he had some kind of group, which is a bit with some myths around going to certain trees and promised that they were going to be like Simón Bolívar. And then when he went to prison, he started to be visited by this izquierda forajida. I don't know how to translate this to. He was visited in prison by and anybody help me with this vocabulary. And then
left-wing renegade? Left-wing renegade?
Renegade. Yeah.
Well, never mind. But basically, there was a left in Venezuela who nobody ever paid attention to them, never got more than 0.5% of the electoral intention of the vote. But they were there. And then they went to Chavez. There was groups called Liga Socialista. They went to them and said, oh, and then they started hitting his ear with this is a Spanish expression. Maybe you understand what it means. About, no, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that. And then in prison, also he had the influence of his brother, because the brother of Chavez was a proper communist proper. This comunista pamphletarian, how do you say this? Pamphlet communist, not how to say, campaign communists, pamphlet communists, people who just have 3, 4 ideas and then they are communists. You know. Not a person, not as lost, but it's just the brother of Chavez. Okay. And then he started to have the left-wing approach, but mixing in a pot, which didn't make sense for people like me, because I was then, when these things happened, I was a member of a political party who was in the radical left at the time, and people like me did never ever trust Chavez, because people like me, South Americans like me, will never ever ever trust someone from the army. And believe me, I haven't changed my mind about this topic, because my view about well, I don't want to, but just wanted to respond to your question. I just say he didn't want the support. He didn't. He opposed the unions because as soon as he could see some criticism and some power, especially power, that was threatening for him, he went against that power. And the unions in Venezuela, they behave like many people in the left in England now. They see a president going to the United Nations and accusing the President Bush at the time that he was the representative of the evil. Immediately they start to have some kind of political orgasm, and then they say, oh, we are on your side because you said that the devil is the President of the United States. To define yourself as left or right, I think is much beyond the point of insulting the President of the United States. And but this kind of symbolic actions, Chavez was extraordinary. He knew that if you insult the President of the United States, the President of the United States is not crazy, he's not going to kill you, he's not going to send drop you an atomic bomb, but he knew that he was going to have the support of all the big media companies in the world. So basically, he used the support of the people selectively just to increase power. The only thing that Chavez was ever interested in was his own power, and nothing else. Forget left and wing or right wing categories, there is nothing else. Sorry, I am very passionate about this because I ended up here in England. I don't like to live here, and I end up here, and I want to go back, and I can't go back. So I am very furious when people from your continent come and tell me, no, Venezuela happens this, happens this, happens this, how do you know? What are my sources? What are my sources? My sources are myself, I have seen it. Okay, so and then they give me an article in the newspaper, in the morning, what's called this crazy Morning Star, and then say, oh, where do you think I'm going to, am I going to change my mind because there is an article with 4 paragraphs giving me information about Venezuela? Of course not. I have seen the things by myself. I saw Chavez. I saw him when he promised this.
Did anyone who would like to, make another passion comment?
Yeah, what had compelled you to make this documentary? What encouraged you and motivated you?
Well, maybe in partial response to that, I always felt that the European left. I consider myself a leftist, but when looking at the rest of the world, in particular in Latin America, they have a mythology that is very, very, back, they still think they are the 60s. They still think there are dictatorship all around South America, fascist style dictatorship. CIA, like it was in Chile, in Argentina, and so they have this binary way of looking at South America. There are no grays; it's just black and white. So there is the good and the evil. What's happening? And so when I went to Venezuela for the first time. I also heard that things were marvelous before going, that there was finally the democratic revolution, And as a tourist, I went to Venezuela and I started to see in every corner in Venezuela huge posters of Chavez. Chavez is building the metro, Chavez is doing the agriculture, Chavez is rebuilding the hospital. Everything was very personalistic. It was one man doing everything, and actually with his money, of course not. So I also, then it happened that I watched television and I saw the way he attacked the opposition, the unions, or anyone criticizing him. And wow, I said, wow, this is really authoritarian, and has to do, it's not very different from the models that probably my parents celebrated. About Cuba, China, or the Soviet countries, and that of course were not so marvelous, no matter what my parents at the time could have thought. But and so well, I decided to try to make a documentary to explain to the European left, in particular. So interviewing mostly people from the left. Not all of them, but most of them are from the different spectrum of the Venezuelan left, from Trotsky, Marxist-Leninist, Social Democrats. There is a little bit of everything there, but they are almost all part of the left. And I wanted to show also to the European left that the opposition to Chavez is not all extreme far right, paid by the CIA.
What kind of response have you had from the European left?
Well, normally there are plenty of Venezuela in the room when I show the documentary, because there is plenty of Venezuelan here in Europe, like everywhere nowadays. So the discussion ended with an approval from the audience. But of course, there is always someone who said that I'm lying, or that things are much better, that things go wrong because there is the CIA that is plotting, or America imperialism, that the economy goes wrong because there is an embargo, that there is not, and things like that. Yeah.
The current situation, what do you think is going to happen next in Venezuela?
Well, now the documentary, I wanted to say that before, was shot the most of it between 2009 and 2013. Every year I used to go a few months to Venezuela to make interview, to study the situation, and of course in these 4 years I saw the situation going, 5 years going worse and worse. Then I stayed 2 years editing the documentary, and I went back in 2016 with the documentary almost finished. I just wanted to add the final scene when you see the people eating garbage, and that you can see everywhere, Venezuela in every corner. And I couldn't see that. I didn't see that before. So the situation is deteriorating dramatically, and every day is worse. Inflation that at the time when I was there, it's big, it could 20, 30%. Now it arrived to 800% last year. That means that you take your salary, you run to buy something, because the day after, you will not be able to buy a package of eggs. And they say, the projections say it will arrive to 13,000% this year. So people are desperate.
I would like to ask you your opinion about how do you think that we can, or Venezuela can escape populism. So at the end, populism is about giving someone or giving people what they need or want, even if you think or you might be suspicious that this is not the right way of approaching this problem. For example, I'm going to give you a house, sounds better than I'm going to make the necessary changes in whatever we need to do so that in 10 years you can get a house. How can we escape this way of doing politics?
You want?
I don't
Short.
Concise.
I don't think it's not just Venezuela. I don't think it's easy to escape populism in any way from any country, and then you have this race of populism in Europe. You have a lot of populism in the, for example, the vote, the campaign for the Brexit in England was full of this false information. And then I've been thinking about that, and personally I think, wait a second, first of all, we have to build citizens. And if you want to build citizens, you have to, job market is a side effect. The main effect you need, the main ability you have to develop in the students and in the future citizens is critical thinking. Ability to doubt, ability to discover the faults of a reasoning, the ability to discover the quality of the sources of what people are reading. And this is particularly important in this time of super development of networks through internet. I have the impression that your accent is Spanish. Look what is happening in Spain. I mean, Spain is a country which is a victim of populism. Is divided between extreme. Spain, I mean, there's this extreme populism and extreme stupidity of the party, the Popular Party. So really, there are no options available there. And look what has happened in Italy.
Much worse.
In Italy, nobody is understanding what is happening there, but it's the same phenomenon, more or less. And what is happening in England, what has happened in England with the Brexit, where they are forcing you out of I saw a country falling down. Venezuela, at a certain point, was the fourth economy in the world, and now the UK is also going downhill at extreme speed. And how many times I hear that will never happen here? I always heard this in Venezuela. We always thought this crazy dictatorship of Chile, of Argentina, of Uruguay. You know what people say? That will never happen here. Are you serious? If you ever say that will never happen here, let me tell you, I believe you're a racist. Because we humans are more or less the same. And if it happened in Germany, that they went to the Nazi way, if it happened in Italy, they became fascist and now they're crazy, if it happened, it can happen in the UK. Okay? And you are giving up civil rights easily, and step by step you can lose them. And if you can go down the road of creating terrible political situations. So populism is basically a matter of having a good citizenry, and that is a bet you have to achieve only through a serious system of education, in my personal view.
In my opinion, there is one thing that, populism is very linked to paternalism. So there is this charismatic leader who gives. But people renounce to be citizens. And so, as I say, to fight against populism, right wing, left wing, doesn't really matter, or religious, can be any kind of.
Yeah, but it's all driven by economic extremes. He just made some promises, and that's gone on since time immemorial. Julius Caesar, Napoleon, all the rest of them. They'll never change that. It's human nature. Somebody promises somebody who hasn't got anything, something.
In which we manage to avoid that, no?
There are moments, checks and balances, but it's...
Since 1945 to the end of the 70s, there was a very strong wave of social democratic policies, and people, what do they get through their strike, their protest, their votes, etc., their freedom of press and things, which was much more than was ever given in any revolution or any populist government. So, the level, of the improvement in the quality of life we had for the first 40 years after World War II were one of these periods. So the thing is, how can we get back to that situation?
So let's comment on the film.
Yeah, fascinating film. I think I probably need to see it again because it presents quite complex issues in Spanish.
It's like it really grabbed the kind of deepness of what happened, and I think that's really important because not a lot of people know about Venezuela and what's going on, but the film actually kind of goes into what people actually go through, and I think that's really important for people here to see that, and in Europe, yeah.
Really good. Thank you. Very enlightening.
I really enjoyed it. I really think that there is a lot of interest in the topic, and I think also maybe another 20 minutes and discussions, people would have had a lot more questions. I think there are a lot of people who are really interested.
As a Venezuelan, I find the documentary very interesting because it has collected information from Venezuelan sources, from Venezuelan point of view. And this is a novelty for me because normally what is presented in the media is from the prejudice of the European left. And Michele Calabresi has very successfully managed to get the actors, some of the members of that society, our society, to speak up their views. And I found very, very rewarding, even if I didn't